Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here, the host of the System Simplified podcast, where I feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And today's episode is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group, where we create, document, and implement processes and procedures so businesses can grow and thrive. And today's guest is all the way from Ireland, which is very exciting, and it's Paul McCarthy. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Eddie. I'm absolutely thrilled to be on your podcast today.
I am thrilled to have you here, and I want to thank Steve Ramona. Big shout out to Steve. I was on his podcast. We're going to record an episode together. He's such a great connector. So thank you, Steve, for connecting us.
Yes, he's been great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Paul, I am so, I'm going to give you a bio, but it's very short because I'm going to have you fill out the rest of the rest of the gap, because we're going to talk today about simplicity and the importance of simplicity in processes. And, it's interesting because yesterday I was actually talking to one of my team members and, I explained to her, she said, well, sometimes those processes can be pretty complex. Like we hear from clients and they are complex. Said, yeah, because people sometimes think about processes as complex, but the beauty of it and what's important is like, how do we make it simple? If we have the ability to actually simplify the process, that's the name of this podcast, the System Simplified podcast, then we can really convey the information and we can communicate, right? So that's what we're going to talk about, and how you manage to build an app that is very simple, very visual, very simple, and you actually accomplish by that people from all over the world being able to communicate very simply by using visuals and using simplicity. So in terms of your bio, you have 25 years in IT and information technology, over 25 years managing commercial and residential real estate. And then you took those two passions, those two together, and you created an application that is being used. It's called Snapfix. Snapfix, and a great name. And tell us a little bit more about that and about your journey.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, Eddie, my background is over 25 years in computer software development, typically developing quite complex and comprehensive systems. And if I'm being perfectly honest, the end user experience was never really to the fore or a priority. So when we delivered these large complex software systems, the users found them extremely difficult to use and very often refused to use them. And to be honest, on reflection, it was no fault of theirs. And about 6 or 7 years ago, I decided not to continue on that path. In the software development world at the time, people were tending to throw more and more features at things. And I decided to go to the exact opposite end of the scale and double down with an absolute focus on simplicity. At that time, I put a lot of study into how Steve Jobs and Johnny Ive designed the original iPod and the iPhone. And the key message from them was to have a relentless focus on eliminating everything that's not absolutely necessary. And when you do that, then you do it again. And then you do it again, and you absolutely just remove everything that's not absolutely necessary. So with Snapfix, we've built a very, very simple communication and collaboration platform where multilingual teams can communicate using photos and collaborate using a simple red, yellow, green traffic light system. The traffic light being for us the universal symbol of teamwork. Every one of us drives to a junction in any country in the world, and we all obey the traffic light system. So for us, combining those two entities together, or those two objects together, was critical for this platform.
Absolutely. So who is the platform meant for?
It's meant for any type of task, but in the early days, we've decided to focus on the built environment. So buildings, infrastructure, and equipment. But we already have people using it for many, many additional uses, from IT, software ticketing, where somebody reports something in red, the team works on it in yellow, and it's completed in green, that kind of thing. So it's a very generic task management platform. It's like having WhatsApp for task management. But as a startup and in our early, we're 4 years old now, we have to focus on one niche, and our niche for the moment is buildings, infrastructure, and equipment. And to give you an example, we would
Yeah,
have
give an example. So
hundreds.
let's say, for instance, a maintenance. Let's say you have a building and you
Yep.
want the maintenance team to use it. So how would they use it?
It wouldn't just be for the maintenance team. Everybody in the hotel can use Snapfix. So everybody has Snapfix on their phone, or they have access to a QR code that communicates in Snapfix. And when a house member of the housekeeping team or management team, anybody spots anything, they just take a Snapfix and they walk away. And that instantly becomes a work order and comes to the attention of the maintenance and management team to complete it. So what we're doing, Eddie, is we're leveraging the eyes and ears of everybody in the building, from employees to guests, or visitors, as required or as configured, to help make the building the best it can be at all times.
So can that be used also for, let's say, property management companies where they can have it for the tenants? So how would that work? Let's say we have a tenant, so something is, let's say I was I was renting an apartment, right? And something like, my dishwasher is not working. What do I do?
Now, the last thing you want, Eddie, is another app on your phone. So what we offer is a very, very simple QR code that the tenant can access, can be shared with the tenant, and they point their smartphone at the QR code, and then you communicate with the landlord's Snapfix system.
So what do? You basically take a picture, but then you
Yep.
also have to have words. How do you do
Yep.
that?
So when you scan the QR code, a form appears up where you can take a photograph and add a short description as well. So it's very, very efficient.
And then it goes to the maintenance department, whomever
Yep.
it goes to. So that eliminates. So what does that eliminate? I would assume it eliminates phone calls. It eliminates.
It eliminates phone calls, emails, post-it notes, taps on the shoulder, scraps of paper. It eliminates all of those.
Interesting. So those were the problems you were trying to solve, right?
So I was
Yeah.
solving my own problem. I manage, as part of a family business, I also manage a number of residential and commercial buildings. And I was getting frustrated by all of these requests coming from tenants and trying to distribute those requests to contractors and just trying to figure out what way was up. I wasn't interested in the complex forms-based systems that were very, very time consuming and kind of rigid. I wanted something as simple as WhatsApp, that I could just do that and then see a visual system status of the completion of that issue.
Amazing. Now, do you send it also? Do you also have the ability to communicate to contractors through this app?
Of course, of course. Everybody in Snapfix is a user with registered either with their cell phone number or an email address. Again, super simple.
Yeah, but it works with, like, let's say I sent you and you're the maintenance manager. So you got, I snapped the problem with a description. It got to you. You send it then to the contractor.
Yep.
And then the contractor communicates back to you. Or maybe if they had to communicate to me, there will be like a communication as well.
It's like a messaging system, again, like WhatsApp or Telegram. So there's no sending it to anybody else. So you take the snap, it instantly appears to me, and I tag the contractor. And then when you tag the contractor, he or she sees it instantly as well. So everything is about just making it super, super simple, but also infinitely flexible.
I see. But if I don't download the app on my phone and I just use the QR code, how do I get communication back?
After you take the Snapfix with the QR code, you get a reference number, you get a work order number essentially, and then you would communicate as normally if you don't have the app. Very often for our customers, it's an easy way for people to get introduced to Snapfix before they decide, you know what, this is actually a pretty good idea. We'll download the app so we can have two-way communication.
Okay, so the two-way communication is via Snapfix, and you can also, so that would be like, let's say you own a restoration company where there was a water damage in a house, you can use that in order to communicate back and forth between your customers and managing, basically coordinating the repairs, etc., as opposed to having an external texting and going into regular texting. They can all be, or everything can be communicated on Snapfix.
Correct. The key difference there is when you're texting or using WhatsApp or texting, your data is on people's personal phones. In Snapfix, everything is in your Snapfix, which is private and secure and hosted in the cloud.
So basically, your technicians, let's say, for instance, that solves the problem of like getting a technician, a work phone, so they don't use the on. I mean, that depends on if you want to pay for the phone or not. That's a whole different story. But if they have a phone, it doesn't go into their messaging. It can
Correct.
be communicating. So the Snapfix also can be a great messaging system for contractors. If they are doing work, they can communicate through Snapfix, right?
Correct. We would have many construction and engineering companies using it for that. Two main areas. One would be recording the as-built progress of a construction project, for example, and then at the very, very end of the construction project, they use it quite a bit with high volume punch lists. So they're snapping different issues. Carpenters snap these issues, the electrician snap these issues to the plumber, and it's very, very simple and efficient again.
Interesting. Okay, so but that's also a way if a client wants to communicate and find a concern or whatnot, they can communicate through Snapfix, right? I mean, if I were a contractor, I can tell my client, okay, well, why don't you, this is what we use, download the app on your phone, and this is how we're going to communicate. So there is no texting to your personal cell phone. It's just that they do it through Snapfix.
Correct. Snapfix is like a network, like a texting application or a messaging application, not a closed product. So everyone in the world everyone on Snapfix can communicate with everybody else on Snapfix in the world.
Fascinating. How did you come up with that idea?
Desperation, Adi, absolute desperation and frustration. When I was struggling with my own problem, the common denominator was WhatsApp. So I saw at the time there were about 60 billion, that's what it be, 60 billion messages being transacted with WhatsApp every day. So I saw that the world was shifting to communicating using photos and messaging. And I said, there's got to be there's room for this in the B2B space I will start with the built environment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So can you also categorize, because, one of the things, in terms of building a system of communication, you want to simplify the communication. You also want to compartmentalize the communication, right? Because when you get too many messages, it just becomes, you can't, you get it's basically like an overload, right? It basically just like, if it were an electric plant, it would be like it would be a short circuit because it's just like too much flowing in one direction or too much jamming here or there. Can you compartmentalize it into different groups?
Really excellent question. Everybody is familiar with the concept of groups in WhatsApp or Telegram or whatever. So we emulate the exact same structure of that. So everything appears in groups, and you can have different organizations of groups. And then within that, you can filter and search based on different tags of issues. So you can say, show me all of the electrical issues that happened in the month of May that John was involved with, that kind of thing.
Good. So the main change between that one and just using WhatsApp group is that it's very specific for that project, right?
Correct. And with WhatsApp, if you had 400 apartments and I was your electrical contractor, we would end up scrolling our lives away on WhatsApp. WhatsApp is a wonderful tool, no question about it, for chat, but it was never built or fit for purpose for getting things done or for task management. So we share a lot of the features with the likes of WhatsApp, but we're very, very focused on simply getting things done very, very efficiently.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about tips and advices about what did you learn in terms of like, what are the best practices to actually get things done? What did you learn from developing the app, from researching it, from, researching the subject in order for you to build the app. Like what would be your advice of like, what is your system or systems that you have seen in order to get things done effectively?
I think one of the great learnings that I've had in my career is learning from the experts before us. I mentioned Steve Jobs and Johnny Ive on that. And if you really deep dive in the way they work and the way they think, you can really bring that into your own business. Because I come from a history of where people just added more and more features, and the idea was more features was better, but it absolutely wasn't. And we know that now. So I think learning from all of these amazing entrepreneurs is a great idea. There's a wonderful podcast as well called the Founders Podcast. And they talk about all of the great founders going back hundreds of years, and the messages are very similar there as well.
Absolutely. So for the entrepreneurs that are listening to us right now, there are fast growing companies lacking consistency. They have fast growing companies lacking consistency. What would be your advice or some things that they can implement right now in order to create that consistency in terms of systems by simplifying some of the things that they're doing?
One of the key things we do in Snapfix is everybody is responsible for one thing. So everybody is very clear what their one thing is. And we encourage them at all times that when they're being interrupted or asked to join a meeting, will this meeting or will this interaction help me with my one thing? If it's the marketing team who need to get X number of leads per day, am I going to be distracted over here by something that could be kind of interesting, or will it help me get do my one thing, which in their definition is X number of marketing qualified leads per day? So defining clearly, very clearly and simply, everybody's one thing, it's amazing. So then you go, when you talk to that person, and if they're asking you anything about anything else in the business, you're able to compartmentalize it and say, okay, that's nothing to do with your job. The effort you put into it will not help you with that. And helping them to recognize that really helps them to focus.
Yeah, that's the key word, is focusing, and focusing on not having the distractions around it. I mean, it can be one thing, it can be more, but it can be your responsibilities, basically.
Oh, distractions are the killer for any startup business. When we started Snapfix, we realized we could work in every type of industry all over the world, but we decided to double down on the built environment, and then we additionally double down on hotels, and then we double down again on a certain cohort of hotels. We don't go after the enormous ones, and we don't go after the really small ones. We go after all of the hotels in the middle. And that level of focus is very hard, because you're thinking, oh, of all of this opportunity left and right, but very often they're distractions in the early days. So as you just mentioned, focus, it's really hard to focus, and it takes a lot of courage to focus, but focus is the answer.
Absolutely. So if people feel like the processes are too complex or hard to explain or hard to document, what would be your advice from your experience, how to simplify them?
You and I use Microsoft Word, Adi. We pay for 100% of Microsoft Word, but we use 1% of it. So it's mainly around having a really concentrated look and a focus about, is the thing we're talking about now going to help me advance my business? If it's not, you have to be absolutely ruthless. You have to ruthlessly eliminate it. I say no to most meetings, because most meetings will be a waste of my time, and it takes courage to do that. In fact, I'm not in my office right now, but in my office I have the word no written on the wall behind me. So we start with no. When people talk about new features going into Snapfix, we start with no, but we have to be really convinced then to put them in, because it's got to benefit everybody. So I think it's around courage to say no to a lot of the things that you might have been doing that are not adding value to your business.
Right, but I think we should add, like, saying no without coming across as like, because there are people that just say no to everything without evaluating. So I think we need to add that you need to evaluate first against your goals, against where you want to be, just like you said, and then say no, and say no kindly, not an
Absolutely.
instantaneous reaction to no, I'm not going to do it, as opposed to okay, well, this does not align with what I'm supposed to, or what I would like to concentrate on. So, and not at this time, right? Because we also don't want to shut doors and close opportunities. And that's
Correct.
basically the fear of missing out. I mean, people have that and then they try everything because what am I going to miss out? So you're right. It does take courage, because courage will overcome that fear, right? Because that's the fear. Like, what am I missing? Well, maybe it's an opportunity. Maybe I don't know. But if you actually stay focused on your goal, but also keep the door open, in my opinion, because you might get a great opportunity that will be better of what you are doing. So I think a good leader is like also has to look at other things, right? Because if you say no all the time, you are going to maybe miss a great opportunity that you didn't even think to evaluate.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And maybe I didn't explain it totally clearly. It's always about having a balance. Jeff
Right.
Bezos, for example, before anybody is allowed to call a meeting in Amazon, they have to prepare a 2 or 3 or 4 page A4 textual written statement of the purpose of it. So when I say we say no to everything, I say no to throwaway comments and people saying we should do this, we should do this. But it
Right.
encourages people to put time into it and document it and put some real research and thinking into it, and then they're worth considering. And again, it's more around not having distractions than anything else.
You're absolutely right. And that is one of the things that, I even went to a lecture last week and they talked about, the speaker, she talked about basically ideas and encouraging ideas for your team. And I got a little bit challenged. I mean, it was a great talk, and I think people should be encouraged to share their ideas. But the problem becomes is when then ideas just flow very easy, like you just, oh, we should do this, or we should do that, or we should do that, but it has no basis behind it or no research, and then it become a distraction and not a help, right? Because
Correct.
let's say we are doing a thing, let's say we are a bakery and we we are very good at baking I don't know, like apple pies, right? And people love our apple pies, and then somebody come with the idea, hey, why won't we also do strawberry and rhubarb pies? Well, we never tried that before. But then if the idea doesn't get accepted, that person can get offended. Oh, you're not open to new ideas. But if you actually came with a market survey of saying,
Hmm.
I asked 20 of our customers and they said, yeah, we would buy the rhubarb pie as much as we're going to buy the apple pie. And then you can say, well, during this and this months, the rhubarb and the strawberry is cheaper than an apple. And this is the promotion that I suggest that we do. It doesn't have to be like, we don't also want people to invest hours in writing something is not going to get accepted, but there should be some concept, some plan, some
Yes.
substantiation of why. And then all you need to look at it, you go like, yeah, that makes sense. Let's continue talking about it. Or no, it does not fit our plan. But it also, that proposal has to also fit our overall mission and vision and core values, right? Because if our mission is to become the best bakery in town, where we retain customers and they come back over and over, then we want to make sure that, if we offer another line, it will actually strengthen that and get people to come in more, right? So that is where the difference is when you want to make a change or you offer an idea, you also have to substantiate it so it's not a waste of
Yes.
time for everyone, because then we are focusing and it has to align with what we are doing. Because now with the example of the bakery, if somebody comes with the idea, well, how about if we actually start selling ice cream? It's not going to be a good, it just doesn't align. Maybe it does. Maybe now if you produce like the most amazing vanilla ice cream that goes with your apple pie and you serve it warm, sounds amazing. But is it really worth the investment as opposed to going sourcing the ice cream from somewhere else, right? So that's what you're talking about, is really
Yes.
looking at all those concepts and all these ideas. And also, I actually mention it to our clients, because we created documents, we document it for our clients, but then the most important thing is that we have to make sure that those processes are being followed by all. And one of the key ingredients of being followed by all is that those processes have to stay alive. So if there is a change, we have to make sure we document the change. But when somebody wants to suggest a change to a process, we have a whole checklist on how to do that. You don't just willy-nilly goes, okay, this is when now we're going to change it and this is the way it's going to work. No, we have to actually have like a checklist in terms of like testing it. Why? How does it fit our overall mission? How does it fit our overall strategic goal for the quarter or for the year? You know, it's like you have to convince somebody that it actually works, and then it's not a waste of time for everyone, and it doesn't distract you, and it's not the interruption you're talking about, right?
Correct. It's about putting just some effort into it and getting some depth of research, as you say. We had a recent example of that. We've been looking at and some suggestions have been there for the last couple of years about using Snapfix for Lean 5S and 6S and that. And one of our team actually started working with an engineering company and implemented 6S using Snapfix with the radar charts.
Not all of our listeners are engineers that understand the term, so please explain.
Oh yeah, so it's a process typically used in manufacturing to make sure that all of the operations are super efficient, and it's more of an example of one of our team started work closely with an engineering company, and they proved that yes, actually this works. So it's something that we'll carry forward, but it took quite a bit of effort and determination to get that depth of work and that effort in. So that's one of the items that just got yes. You know, we'll keep moving forward with that.
Right, exactly. Well, Paul, this has been a great conversation. If people want to know more about Snapfix and about you or contact you, what should they do?
The easiest thing to do is go to snapfix.com. That's our website. My own email is paul@snapfix.com. Love to hear from everybody. And if I can offer any assistance at any time, please get in touch.
Great. All right. Well, thank you again for being a guest on this podcast. It's been a pleasure talking to you. A very interesting conversation of how to simplify processes. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Andy. I thoroughly enjoyed that.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.